Hello and welcome. You're watching Coronavirus Facts versus Myths. I'm Rishika Barwa. The big story we're tracking for you today: could India get a fifth COVID vaccine soon? That's the big question. Well, Zydus Cadila has requested for emergency use authorization for its DNA vaccine, ZyCoV-D. Now, this is a 3-dose COVID vaccine that's actually the world's first DNA vaccine. The shot, the company says, is needle-free and safe for children. They say they've done clinical trials in the 12 to 18 age group too. Now, the company claims that the vaccine is 66.6% effective against symptomatic COVID and 100% effective against moderate disease. The phase 3 trials were conducted in India. Now, these were the largest trials to ever have been conducted in the country. The trials were held across 50 centers with 28,000 volunteers. The trials were done through the second wave of COVID, and therefore the company claims that the vaccine will work against the Delta variant. Now, it is a needleless vaccine. It can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees Celsius, and the company says that the vaccine can also be stored at 25 degrees Celsius for a period of 3 months. So this is an extremely interesting development that has taken place. I'd like to, at the very outset, clarify that all of these, this data, the statistics, is all a company claim at the moment. This has been put out by Zydus Cadila. All of this data, of course, needs to be peer reviewed. But what does this really mean for India? We have Dr. Naresh Trehan, Chairman MD of Medanta, joining us on the broadcast. We also have Dr. Julian, Consultant Virologist, Clinical Microbiology, University Hospitals of Leicester, joining us from the UK. Thank you both very much for being with us. Dr. Trehan, exciting news?
Yeah, of course. We're all looking forward to newer and newer weapons that we can find against this terrible virus. So, like you said, it is early days. This is data that has been submitted by the company. We have no reason not to believe that it won't work, because so far in the trial it seems like it works. It's a new concept. So let's see. Of course, the ultimate proof comes when you go out in the marketplace and lakhs of people get vaccinated with it. But it's got some very good features. The fact that it's transdermal, that you don't have to put invade the skin, and it goes across the skin. That's good. The second thing is that the 3-dose makes it a little more cumbersome, but that's fine too. And the most exciting part, or the most important part, I would say, is the fact, the possibility that children may be able to be vaccinated by it. Because, see, our main concern today has been that what will happen if there is a bad third wave. The children are the only population which were unprotected. Because by that time, a good number of adults would have been vaccinated already. So our anxiety was that if the virus has to find a host, and the ones who are vaccinated are to a great degree immune, then the children may be the target. Now, this is all thought process, which may not happen. So, but there is concern. So, if something comes along in the near future, it will be great news.
Okay. Let me also get in a reaction from Dr. Julian. Dr. Julian, how are you looking at this news? And, Zydus Cadila claims that they've actually developed the world's first DNA vaccine. What does this mean? Can you explain to our viewers?
Yeah, so in fact, Australia is also trialling a DNA vaccine as well at the moment. And the DNA vaccine technology, again, is new to the human population in terms of mass vaccination. Some have been used in veterinary animal trials. But the theory is really similar to the mRNA vaccines that have worked so well, in that you inject DNA that codes for a specific antigen, viral protein, usually the S antigen, again in this case, and then you stimulate the host immune response to then trigger a specific reaction to that S protein coded by the DNA vaccine. And the use of this jet injector with no needles is probably much more appealing to kids and to adults as well.
Yes.
As long as it can introduce enough DNA vaccine coding fragments to stimulate the adequate S gene immune response.
Right. In fact, if I can just ask you a quick question, Dr. Julian, on that point that you raised, that it's a needle-less vaccine, how common is this technology, and do you really think that it could be a game changer?
Yeah, so we don't use that technology at the moment for any of the standard immunization vaccines. It really relies on introducing enough of the DNA coding fragments into the subcutaneous tissue rather than into the muscle. That's okay because we do have subcutaneous vaccines options as well, including for rabies and even hepatitis B, and even some influenza vaccines do this. But they use a needle to get just below the skin rather than deep into the muscle. So again, this jet injector is quite unusual, quite novel. You see it in the movies a lot, but it's not really been trialed at a large population level in the current population. So that's another step that needs to be validated and verified for this vaccine.
All right. Well, 1 in 4 people suffer from fear of needles. So if indeed this vaccine works, it could go a long way in actually disseminating the vaccine to a large number of people. Dr. Trehan, let's just talk about the logistics, because it's a 3-dose vaccine, but at the same time, the company claims that it can be stored at 2 to 8 degrees and even at 25 degrees for a period of up to 3 months. So in terms of logistics, do you think, it works for India? It'll be good for us?
So, one, like I said earlier, with 3 doses does make it more cumbersome, because you have to track the people. They have to remember that they have got the 3rd dose coming, and the gaps have to be defined, and then the logistics of it, of getting all the people in time, registering them. So it is cumbersome. But there are advantages, like we said, it's transcutaneous, which I'm not so sure today people are that scared of those very fine needles that are being used. So it's not that that's a major concern, but the concern really is that can it, over a large population, deliver the right amount of dose transdermally in everybody?
Right.
Now, because skin has many characters by itself, so it remains to be seen. But I don't think that that's a major cause of caution. On the other hand, it's a new technology. We will not know until it is proven over a large number of people.
Right.
And then if we go through a sort of a sorry state of 3rd wave, then of course it'll prove itself.
Yes, and of course, once again, this is a company claim, and this data hasn't been peer reviewed, and we said that at the outset as well. But Dr. Trehan, the trials included, the 2nd wave of COVID, when the Delta variant was dominant here in India. The company claims that the vaccine therefore will work against the Delta variant. Is that encouraging?
Of course it is, but we don't know the percentage of Delta right now, and in what regions were the studies done. There was localized in some areas, there was alpha beta in the middle. So I don't want to put too much currency on that.
Right.
But the fact is that time will tell, but it all depends on the fact whether the virus mutates enough to actually change the S protein. Today we are all looking at antibodies being made to those S spike proteins, which are, whether it is mRNA, whether it is DNA, or whether it is vector based, whatever we do, we are looking at the same protein.
Right.
Now, so far, there is scant evidence that some of it may be changing, but there is not enough concern right now about that. But we also know that as long as enough number of people are available for infecting, and while the virus is replicating, that's when it changes its character in the replication.
Right.
So the idea is the less number of people are left to be infected, or to a degree where the virus multiplies to that degree in their bodies that it spins off more and more variants. That will be the turning point in this whole pandemic.
All right.
So the three things are: we stay safe till we are all vaccinated.
Yes.
Accelerate vaccination as fast as possible, and also vaccine hesitancy has to be abolished.
All right.
In the sense, not by law, but by mental force.
Well, one definitely hopes that, the questions that you doctors answer on our shows go some way in at least answering questions, removing doubts and removing vaccine hesitancy thereof. Thank you so much, Dr. Trehan and Dr. Julian, for sparing your time and being with us on NDTV.
Well, okay, bye.
Well, it is Doctors' Day today, and we salute the spirit of our doctors, our frontline workers who have fought so bravely during the course of this COVID-19 pandemic. It's been an unprecedented year and unprecedented times for several frontline workers. I have two very special ladies joining me, two doctors who have been in COVID-19 ICUs, fighting this battle at the very front lines. Dr. Tripti Gilada, infectious disease physician, joins us from Mumbai. We have Dr. Neha Gupta. She's also an infectious disease specialist joining us from Delhi. Thank you both doctors very much for being with us. Dr. Tripti, to you first. Happy Doctors' Day firstly. And how has this year really been for doctors like yourselves? It's been unprecedented in many ways.
Absolutely. I think this is one of those years that none of us had ever predicted how it would turn out. It has been extremely challenging both at work and emotionally, because while we've seen a lot of victories, we have seen a lot of losses very closely. We've had moments of frustration, feeling absolutely helpless, especially in the second wave. But I think we've all tried our best. On this day, I would also especially like to thank the families of doctors and the families of frontline workers, because I don't think we would have been able to give our 100% without them, because they are there with their support and, not making us feel guilty for leaving so many things at home undone. I think we are able to do what we are doing.
All right. Well, thank you then to you and, of course, to families of countless doctors who've waited to see their loved ones, and doctors, of course, have been through their own emotional experiences in trying to stay away from their families, keep their families safe. Dr. Neha, what's it been like, especially the second wave of COVID? It was really tough for even people who were just watching stories, people like us who were reporting on the stories, and you've lived through that.
Absolutely. I think during the second wave, the surge of cases was at such a very short span of time. We saw so many cases, and that really overburdened the healthcare. There were shortage of beds, there were shortage of medications, and especially in Delhi NCR, we were even short of some basic medicines like the steroids. So it was a very, very difficult time when it comes to getting the consultations done as well as the medications for the patients. Yes. So it was extremely challenging, difficult, but all the doctors, I think, they all work to the best of their capacity to help people at this difficult time. And of course, we all try to help as well as save whatever lives we can. Unfortunately, there have been, deaths as well. And that just makes us feel like we have to keep all the protective measures which we have, that needs to go on. The mask has to go on, the vaccination has to go on. And with this platform, I would really want to also wish Happy Doctors' Day to all mentors, teachers, and all our colleagues who have been working together to help.
Well, it's been an extremely difficult time, unprecedented, and thank you both very much for joining us on NDTV, sharing your experiences. One sincerely hopes that the worst is indeed over. But thank you for your service, and thank you for joining us. Welcome back to our special campaign, Vaccinate India, in partnership with Google. We're discussing questions that you may be Googling about the COVID-19 vaccine. And to answer some of those questions, we have Dr. Tripti Gilada, infectious disease physician, Unison Medcare, with us from Mumbai. Thanks, Dr. Tripti, for being with us. One of the most common concerns is still about the safety of the COVID-19 vaccine. What would you like to tell viewers?
So there has been a lot of myths and misconceptions about the vaccine. The vaccine side effects are usually mild, which usually last for 1 or 2 days post-vaccination. There aren't any long-term side effects and fear of infertility or cancer or genetic change is absolutely baseless, and people really do not need to worry about that. The vaccine benefit is far more than what people even understand. So we know that the efficacy is anywhere between 60 to 80% from an infection, but the efficacy or protection from a severe infection or hospitalization or death is more than 95%. And that is where the entire beauty of the benefit of the vaccine lies.
Right. So you're saying that, potentially one has seen people who've been vaccinated get COVID as well, but it does give you an extra layer of protection against severe disease or hospitalization, which is really key because, you've been on the front lines, you've been working in a COVID ICU and you've seen firsthand what the second wave has done, for instance.
Yeah, we've actually seen the benefit of the vaccine in the second wave, where healthcare workers who were vaccinated, even senior citizens who were vaccinated with both the doses, really did not reach the hospital. So even though they did get infected, I think that's the other thing that social media does, where they will talk about people who've been vaccinated and have got infected, and people start fearing that vaccine le liya, fir bhi infection ho raha hai, to vaccine kyun le? But they are not reaching the hospital, and that's really very important.
Yes. Also, the other question is about the effectiveness of the COVID vaccine. And I ask you this question is because, different vaccines put out efficacy data. How is a layperson supposed to understand which vaccine is most effective?
So both the vaccines that we have currently, both Covishield and Covaxin, pretty much have the same efficacy in terms of protection from infection, which is anywhere between 60 to 80%. So a person who's vaccinated has 60 to 80% lesser chances of getting a symptomatic infection. But the protection from getting a severe infection or hospitalization or death is over 95%.
Right.
With both the vaccines.
Right. And, the other reason why vaccine effectiveness is in question is because of the new emerging variants of COVID that one keeps hearing about. How effective are the vaccines against new emerging variants?
So the Delta variant is also the vaccine is very well effective against the Delta variant, especially, like I said, from severe infections. For symptomatic infection, there definitely seems to be lesser immunity compared to the earlier variants that we have. It is too soon or too early to talk about what will happen with the Delta Plus variant. But the emerging evidence seems that the vaccine will have protection even against the Delta Plus variant.
Right.
But we will have to wait for a while to really know what is happening.
And do we know at the moment, Dr. Tripti, any more about whether we need booster shots? How long will the vaccines continue to be effective against the new emerging variants? Are we closer to answering any of those questions?
So there have been some early studies done in people who are immunocompromised, whose immunity is decreased, like in transplant individuals. And in these patients, a third booster dose did show some benefit. There have also been some early studies where a booster given after 6 months, especially in individuals whose antibody levels were low, have really had some benefit. So going forward, maybe a third dose is required. And this will become more and more evident when we do large population studies and see what the antibody levels do after 6 months.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Dr. Tripti, for answering all of those questions.